Hi, Internet viewers. This is Frank Rauscher again. I'm going to proceed on today to do a painting of the otter. I'm going to show you how to do it. We have it all textured. We have it sprayed with acrylic spray. It was 51301 is the acrylic spray number. And we are now going to make this all white, so it's a base color that we start from that's consistent throughout. And then what we'll do is I'm going to take you on a step-by-step of the different colors we're going to use, and I will proceed on with that, and we will start first with the wash, and I'll show you that in just a second. Before we start painting the otter, I'm going to introduce you to the colors I'm using. I use Liquitex. I tend to like that acrylic paint, and we'll mix this with water and use it as washes, as well as we will go heavy with some of the paint sometime. The base coat that I use is titanium white. I just like this rather than gesso. Gesso tends to fill up all the voids that you have, which is the detail of the burning or the texturing that we put on the otter. So I go with titanium white. I water it down, and I will show you the process on that. But this is what I start with. Then the other colors that I use, I'm going to use burnt umber. I'm going to use raw sienna. I'm going to use ivory black. Any black will do, but I just happen to have ivory black and I use that. And raw sienna. Okay, so these are the ones that I primarily use for painting the otter itself. So I am going to proceed on with the wash, and I'll show you this in the next step here. I'm now going to start with the titanium white. I will get the tube of titanium white. I'm going to put a little bit, about a pea size of the titanium white out. And then I'm going to get some water, and I'm going to mix this with about maybe 3/4 of a cup of water into this tray. This is a plastic tray that I use for mixing my paints, and I basically pretty much work within this area here as far as blending and stuff like that. I use a paper towel to dab off my brush, and I also have some water that I'll rinse my brush out. But the idea is I'm going to mix this paint really well so that you don't have clumps hanging out. You want to mix it very well to get all the paint dissolved within the water. And I usually try to go about 3/4 of a cup. I have a little bit more than I would want in here, but that'll work anyway, I think. And if need be, I will add a little bit more paint, but I don't want it so full that the paint starts drifting all over the place. I want to try to keep it contained. I do want to mix it well so that I feel as though I have all the paint pretty much blended into with the water. Now I'm going to start on the otter itself, and I'm just going to paint everything. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to basically whitewash everything right over the eyes, the whole thing. And what I want to do is give it one good coat. And what I'm going to do along the way here, I will stop the camera so that I could let this dry, and then we'll proceed on to the next level. But we're going to do several coats on here. The first coat is just getting the paint to adhere to the otter itself, and we may be hitting and missing in spots, but we're going to try to coat it completely. I usually like to start with the head and then move my way back onto the tail. And I'm sort of generous, but I don't want the paint to run, so I try to just get enough on the brush to maneuver it and blend it. Not really blend it, but just get an even coat throughout. And when you start running out of paint, then you go back and get some more. And you don't want to just have it so runny that it runs all over the place. You want to control it at all times. And this is especially when we get into the real colors itself. So you'll watch me on this, and depending on how it dries, and that's why I want to sort of do, it would be like a time-lapse type thing. I want to show you after this thing dries how sometimes when you get the first coat on, it isn't generally enough. So I'll go back and give it a second coat. And in some cases, you think you got everything, but you missed a spot or two. So it's good to give it a second coat. And you want a real good base coat of the titanium white throughout. Now, like I said, I usually start in the beginning here with the head and then move my way back, because I can hold the tail without starting to finger paint, things. So I'll try to just gradually move my way back and get this whole thing coated with an undercoat here of titanium white, and show you how I do this. And then I'll start holding the tail, which is sort of like a good way of doing it. If you were doing birds, you can have a device that where the foot would be attached to the bird. They have these little wood dowels with screws in them that you could screw into the bird and just hold the stick, which would be basically holding the bird. That's another trick we use too, so that you don't actually handle the carving. But in the case of the otter here, there is no handle other than the tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to try to accelerate the drying of the first coat, which I'm not going to show in this video. I'm going to use a hair dryer to basically dry the paint. And then because we can speed this up a little bit faster each time. And I will show you the hair dryer process once we start painting the otter here. Hair dryers are really great for keeping, for getting washes on, and without waiting for them to dry, you can accelerate the process, and that's what most carvers use. And this is a good way of just making a lot of progress without waiting for this to dry on its own. and I'm going to try to do that. And we're getting close to the end here. Now, when you're laying this down, a lot of times the less contact to a surface to let this dry is good, because it tends to want to maybe harden with an edge or something like that. So I'm going to have a cup here that I'm going to have it sit on, so it just has a few contact points to touch the otter itself. And we're getting down to the end here. So I'm going to put this on this cup here and just prop it up. And then what I'm going to do is paint the rest of it without doing some finger painting, in a sense, by getting all the paint all over me. I'm going to try to get as much done on the first coat here. So I think I'm going to end up with a little finger painting anyway, but I got most of it coated now. And that is the first coat. So I will pause the camera for a minute, and I will get a hair dryer. I will dry this, and then I will start up again on this whole thing on the second coat. So bear with me.